Hi, I received a good question today from one of the Faith Life High Definition Bible Study members. He was asking about how much of the background in discourse devices and discourse understanding of concepts should you incorporate in your preaching and teaching. That's a really good question. When I was in seminary, one of my Greek professors had said that Greek is a lot like underwear in the sense that it's expected that you have it on, but people don't expect you to show it to them. I would say that that same kind of rule of engagement would fit well with the discourse devices. There are contexts where it really makes sense and is useful to talk about a device, but I would say more often than not, it can be distracting. I would say if you are going to talk about something, first of all, make sure that it's something that's actually going to add to what you're doing instead of being a distraction from the text. Because the last thing we want to do is create the impression that someone needs to have some super deep understanding before they can read the Bible. It's already hard enough to get people to read the Bible as it is. Let's not make it any worse. Thing two is to see, is it really necessary for them to understand the point you're making or what's going on? Do they have to understand this discourse device? Is it going to enhance their understanding, or is it going to end up being a distraction from it? Because from my perspective, the goal of Bible study is to help prepare you to teach, and not all of those insights are you're either going to have time or are they going to be relevant to fit in. The high definition commentaries are a way to bring some of those devices in with the infographics and the slides that I've designed. And so that could be kind of an elegant way of bringing those things in, but not necessarily. Again, it's just really a judgment call. I would say if you are going to bring them in and you are going to talk about them, then I wouldn't so much use the name of the device and require people to learn the terminology as much as I would appeal to kind of colloquial English and say, it's just like a coach, so blah, 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 blah. So the specific question was about demonstrative pronouns and the near-far distinction. There are some instances in John where you have what's called a derogatory, what traditional grammars call a derogatory use of demonstrative pronouns, where they're talking about this Jesus or that son of yours. Well, we can do the same kinds of thing in English. We can get in trouble just as easily in English as the original speakers could in Greek. So I could say, for instance, I wouldn't say, or at least I've learned not to after 25 years of marriage, to say that mother of yours to my wife. I'm not going to do that. Or this child has just been nothing but any of those kinds of usages are going to let people know that it's not really the preferred usage. It's a distancing. It's this derogatory use. So if you're trying to correlate what's going on, again, use that if you need to. If it's just simply understanding the distinction that the things that the Father is doing, that Jesus sees the Father is doing, is what's important as opposed to the Father being important. I would just say, the writer has phrased things in such a way to differentiate what's more important. It's not that God isn't important in other places, but you have two competing things here, and so he's telling us which of those two is the more important. So again, I would kind of go with the underwear rule, if you want to call it that, or don't tie that back to me. Maybe that was really bad. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But the point is, more times than not, you're not going to want to talk about the discourse devices explicitly. As much as they're interesting and fun, getting into those kinds of things can end up being a distraction. It can make people be off-putting, and we don't want to do that. But if it's really useful, if it's important, go ahead and do that. Or if it's a small group Bible study and people have the same kind of access, that's great. But I think one of the challenges I remember from when I first started doing public teaching in a Bible setting was differentiating the cool things I learned in my preparation from what actually should make it into the Bible study. Because if I put in, however many hours in my Bible study, and I have this much time in the actual study, I need to be selective about what I include, and therefore I need to really keep my readers and my audience in mind as I'm including things. So I hope that answers your question, and provides some principles then for how to include things, how to decide what to talk about, what not to talk about.